Behind the Cape. Looks like we've got quite a bit of news to discuss. The first thing I wanted to talk about, though, is our boy D Steezel hit up the comments on our last Behind the Cape video and said,
Shout out to Steezel.
absolutely, and said, and I quote, first of all, he said, good breakdown, y'all, which shout out to you. He said that the writer's strike will go down if they and the powers that be can't reach an agreement by May 2nd. I see that as a good thing and bad thing. Bad because it'll ruin all the good IPs. Good because it might, just might, force incompetent studios like Marvel to wise up and hire better writers who actually give a damn about that source material. Thoughts?
So I guess I need some further clarification on the writer's strike. Who are they negotiating with?
The Writers Guild of America.
Writers Guild of America. Okay, that's an interesting take, because if the writers go on strike, some of the better writers that we've been missing, in some of these studios, as of recently the Russo brothers, or as recent Lindelof that got let go of his Star Wars project. Some of the people that we actually want to pin some of these projects are probably going to fall within that strike. They're probably going to be on the right side of the picket fence. So why, yes, it is going to force studios to work a little bit harder if you can't get a well-known or at least a hot name to be a writer because of the strike. The issue then becomes, well, now you're working with replacements. And so I don't know if that gives you a higher or a lesser likelihood to have the same type of writing that we're getting now, because the projects that I'm thinking Steezel is criticizing here when he's talking about that is with some of these newer indie writers or documentary series writers, people who haven't done, large budget feature films. They've done a lot of indie stuff. They've done a lot of artsy stuff. They've done a lot of, contemporary films, but nothing with a $200 million budget with a titular character that needs to be built up, right? And so does the writers strike mean we're going to get less of that or more of it? I don't know. I do think that it's going to, if it ends up going through and the writers go on strike, it's going to send a lot of studios into a tizzy temporarily.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a lot of active projects coming from major studios right now, or at least are being talked about being put together. So I do think it'll put a logjam in the industry, and that's kind of the point, right?
And that'll be interesting because we just got off of all these projects being put on hold from the pandemic. And so we're finally starting to see some of the things that came out of that period. And now here we are again in another hold period, which probably won't be as long, obviously, but a hold period nonetheless, unfortunately. That's what I'm not looking forward to, but we'll see what
And I
happens.
mean, so you will have some people who hold strong and who actually cross the picket line and stay with the studio.
Sure.
I don't think that'll be a very popular position to take, so you won't see many people do it, but there will be some that stay. But just kind of like as a whole, like Warner Brothers, Disney, those guys are going to have to go through a period of having to try and find new writers to finish out these projects or even start them up, depending on where they are at in the production cycle. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out. That is an interesting take, though.
Absolutely. Speaking of writing, it seems that the Russo brothers are currently working on the script for Gray Man 2, and they are also interested in directing the Batman Brave and the Bold DC movie, which seems pretty interesting.
Gray Man 2? Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Batman Brave and the Bold by the Russo brothers.
You weren't very excited about that when it came up, especially with who their choice of Robin may be, but
yeah, I don't know. You know what? I wasn't in love with the concept of what they were planning on doing with the new Batman movie. However, if the Russo brothers are given enough creative control to maybe curb some of what I heard on the initial reaction, like if this is not dropping Batman directly into a situation where he's fathering a child and there's no like movie to lead us into that or explain it or or whatever, if we were just dropped right into the situation of Bruce and Damian already together, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I'm gonna want to see. But if anybody could pull something like that off, or at least get us to that point of it being a Batman and Damian Drake story, or Damian Wayne, maybe the Russo brothers. I do want to see the Russo brothers in another superhero film.
Sure.
Like I want another Captain America Civil War, another Winter Soldier. Like, man, those movies hold up so well even today versus the current MCU. I mean, those movies held up against other, like, conspiracy, espionage, governmental overlord type of movies. Would I like to see the Russo brothers do a Batman movie? Yes. Would I like to see them do the Batman movie that was pitched to us 3 months ago? I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm down for Russo brothers in superhero in general.
Sounds like you would want them to kind of create their own
idea of what they want to do with Batman. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. We'll have to see if that's a thing for James Gunn, right? It hasn't been proven otherwise in terms of who gets to decide where the characters are going. So far, it's all Gunn.
Yeah, I guess thinking about the reveal as to what he was kind of explaining between all the franchises, I think it's interesting that it doesn't necessarily have to be the specific title. Like, he doesn't actually have to, or the Russo brothers, I guess in this case, wouldn't actually have to start with Batman and Robin right away, right? Mm-hmm. They can lead into it, and that's just a general idea for the IP as a whole. But, I don't think it necessarily has to be, we're going to start you right now with
Damian and Bruce, which is just going to be, I don't know, because where do you work from there? So now obviously we're going forward, but then at some point it's going to force you to go back. Prequel movies are very treacherous to me. They can go very well, i.e. The Hobbit, or they could not go so well, i.e. Fantastic Beast. Right? Like, you could end up almost creating something that you almost definitely want to erase from the lore immediately after doing the prequel route. So starting us in the middle of a timeline with a character like Bruce Wayne, you better hit.
Sure.
Like, you better hit it. Otherwise, everything else you do for that character is going to be about trying to correct, trying to fix. At least when you tell a story from the beginning, you decide where it goes. You decide how the backstory can add on to what is still coming, right? If you give me a point that is not the beginning and start the franchise there, eventually you have to then go back and explain how we got here.
Yeah.
Now, it's a very weird way of storytelling. It works sometimes, but just not enough for that to be what I would do with Batman, just in my opinion.
Sure, absolutely. You have stated that we have some Spider-Man comic news.
Man, so I don't know who to blame. I don't know if we blame Zeb Wells, any of the other Spider-Man writers for what's going on with the Spider-Man comic currently. It is apparently what is going to come out in May's issue of Amazing Spider-Man, right? And if you're familiar, you read Spider-Man, you know that there is some sort of conflict between Mary Jane and Peter Parker that has led them astray. And in the most recent issue of that comic book, we see that Mary Jane has a family, has 2 kids, and a lumpy husband who looks like he works at the post office.
Yikes.
Instead of Peter Parker. So if that's not bad enough, there's going to be something that happens in May that the fans are going to be so upset with that the writer has been notified not to go to conventions this year because of it.
Damn.
Marvel Editorial has told this man, I think his name is Nick Kelly, is the co-writer on Spider-Man, don't come to conventions because these people are going to murder you.
That bad?
They didn't say that second part.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe they did, but they didn't report it. What kind of shape do you have to be in where you encourage someone to do something with your publications that they can't be seen in public afterwards for? Yes, please write this, but then stay in your home for the next 30 days because someone will most definitely try to murder you.
That is crazy.
Why are you selling it?
Especially coming off of Homeboy's Black Panther run. Yeah,
Spider-Man is a top 2 seller in comics anywhere.
sure.
DC, Marvel, Image, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's a top 2 selling character in comics anywhere.
My point being, why you would want to take the backlash that you received for that and exacerbate it times 10.
Why are you doing it at all? Why are you allowing this man to do something that's going to be so fatal to the character that even general fans will hate you for it? You can't even show up to a Comic-Con because you may be in danger. That's how bad what is about to happen. Fam, when did we start writing stories for people to hate us? When did that become a thing? Oh man, I'm writing this story and every comic book fan is gonna absolutely fucking hate it. Yeah. Print. Whose idea was that? And when did that become the norm? Like, not just with comic books, not just with TV shows, not just with movies. When did they become the idea to create media to make people angry?
Social media.
It's such a talentless thing. The only thing I have to do is find out what you like and go 180 degrees the opposite way of that. It is such a talentless thing to do. There's no creativity in that. There's no originality in that. It's rage. It's outrage. It's anger. It is the oldest emotion of humans ever. Because anger is linked to aggression, that is linked to killing, that's linked to hunting and feeding yourself.
Which is also linked to comments and quote retweets and
well sure.
Plenty of
but the point I was trying to make is that anger is probably the most basic emotion of human beings. So it takes little to no effort to curtail anger into content. That doesn't make it good. It makes it lackluster even. You know what? I'm gonna try and see if I can get Spider-Man out of that top 2. Let me see if I can get him down to 7. Because clearly that's the barometer of success at Marvel Comics currently. How bad we can make loyal, long-term fans feel about content that they're almost forced to buy because they're fans. And they know not supporting the industry greatens the likelihood that they won't be able to enjoy said industry anymore. So it's a mind fuck. Okay, don't buy it if you want to, but if Spider-Man stops selling, comic books in general are in trouble. And comic book buyers know that. They know if they stop buying Batman, that's probably the one angle that nobody wants to talk about, right? We know this stuff is crap, but every single month you see Batman and Spider-Man at the top of the list of the sellers. Now, why is that? If all the comic book fans knows that it's crap and that they haven't given us what we've wanted in years, why do we still buy them? Because they're the 2 most popular comic books. And if those comic books don't sell, the rest of the industry could because what else is going on right now? What else you got?
Photon.
I love Monica Rambeau, love Eve Ewing, but that's not gonna keep them afloat.
Sure.
They don't even market those books like they want them to replace a Spider-Man or a Batman. They don't market them that way. They don't give them the writers to have a title like that go to the forefront. They put it all on Spider-Man and Batman, and then they do the same crap with those characters too. Because they are so convinced their hubris is so high that they feel like they can shovel a shit and sit back and watch us toil over it gleefully while they continue to get to make the crap that they make. Because it's more important to troll the trolls than it is to make quality content for the people who are keeping you in your job.
Seems that Adam Driver will probably end up being Mr. Fantastic there, and I think final talks with him, I believe. Which I don't think I believe in him more than obviously Krasinski. I honestly think Penn Badgley seems a little bit more like Mr. Fantastic than Homeboy. But Adam Driver is the name, it seems like.
I blame y'all. I blame y'all. See, I had nice things to say about Multiverse of Madness, right? One of those nice things was John Krasinski. I said nice things. So Marvel obviously saw all the joking around how they decided to make John Krasinski die and how lackluster the Illuminati was coming over in general, not to me, but to everyone else, right? And decided that they needed to take another swing at a Mr. Fantastic. Now, half of that is just Disney-fying things. They can't get out of their own way. They had a guy, they had a fan favorite guy, and they've chosen to go another route. So they're taking another risk where they don't have to. That's Disney. That's their MO. Taking risk where risks aren't necessary to take. That is become their calling card. But the other half of this is that y'all dogged that movie so much, and y'all dogged Krasinski so much that they thought it was worth taking a second look on who was going to be in the actual franchise. Watch what hate campaigns you jump on next time, I guess. Because it seems like y'all hate Adam Driver a lot more than you hated John Krasinski, which I think is warranted for this character, except you should have never gave John Krasinski your hate anyways. You should have sent it at Kevin Feige. You should have sent it at Nate Moore and Victoria Alonso, not John Krasinski, not the fan cast that we've all been behind. That we have all been behind since Fantastic Four got announced. But no. See, that's the segment of the fan base that can't be pleased. You can't get enough. You're gonna get your second Mr. Fantastic in about 3-4 years. Meanwhile, I don't know if we'll ever see another T'Challa in the MCU. Yep. Not as currently constituted, not while Nate Moore still works there. You're going to get your second iteration of Reed Richards in the MCU alone. We're not even talking about the Fox guy. In the MCU alone, you're about to have your second Reed Richards by a second high-profile actor. Imagine that. Imagine that. Somebody who has the type of regard that John Krasinski has in Hollywood, not just as an actor, but as a director and producer as well, gets to play Reed Richards and keep the respectability around playing that role, and we can give him his flowers, right? And then we can turn around and let Adam Driver do the same fucking thing for the same character. And there's no disrespect. No one's losing any respect. No one's taking away from anyone else's role in it, are they? We're not even entertaining that type of language, are we? Because when you want something to happen, you adjust the language to fit what it is you need to happen. So this idea that it was ever disrespectful to recast Chadwick Boseman's character, not Chadwick Boseman, Chadwick Boseman's character was always a Disney thing. It was always a Disney thing. Those always seeds that were sold by Disney to help drive home their point, which was, we're not recasting the character, so we need you to be okay with it. We'll give you reasons to be okay with it, but you'll just have to be okay with it.
Sure. Yeah, I just think it's interesting that people are not going to get Krasinski again, and so they're probably going to hate Adam Driver. And this is probably all.
Driver is not Josh, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them both in Secret Wars.
I can see that too.
I wouldn't be surprised if the like this is a red herring and he's a multiverse Reed Richards and the black guy from Ant-Man is actually Reed Richards in the MCU. We can have a multiverse of Reed Richards, right? We have the Council of Reeds.
True.
We you low-key needed the Council of Reeds to fight the Council of Kings, right? At some point.
Yeah.
Wasn't that going to be a thing? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's limitless possibilities, as we can see, for characters like Thunderbolt Ross or characters like Reed Richards. There's endless possibilities, even with varying importance to the main storyline. We'll have a supporting character like Red Hawk, or we'll have a main character like Reed Richards. Doesn't matter, as long as they're white, they're getting recast. Doesn't matter. There's no way of explaining this to me. It's a main character or is a supporting character. Oh well, General Ross is easier to recast because he is a supporting character and nobody really cares about him. Do you care about Reed? Do you care about Reed Richards? This will be our second Reed Richards in this universe. Remove your cap, sir.
Speaking of Victoria Alonso, as you did earlier, she seems to be getting a multi-million-dollar buyout.
She's getting paid. She's getting paid. Multi-million-dollar payout. And they're not going to take her to court and try to argue any legitimate reasons about why they fired her, like a severe dip in VFX quality, because then they would have to acknowledge the fact that the quality of their movies are crap.
Yes.
And probably will be for the foreseeable future, because Victoria Alonso was involved in a lot of what we're going to see coming up.
For sure.
So I don't think they wanted to do that. I also don't think that they wanted her out there talking any more than she already had. I mean, she was literally telling us that the directors don't make that movie. Now imagine if E! News or ET or Access gets Victoria Alonso to sit down and tell us exactly how Marvel actually makes the movies and not the directors that they hire to do it.
That'd be pretty big news.
This is not a time to be battling perception for Marvel. They've got fire coming from multiple fronts. If a couple million was going to keep Victoria Alonso shut up, then let's just do that and get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Let's just do that and get out of Dodge. What I'm more interested in is that Ike Perlmutter is not getting some huge buyout. He's been there longer. He essentially gave Marvel to Disney, so I'm surprised that he's not getting a better deal. Or maybe he is. I don't know. I haven't heard much on what his after firing situation is looking like. It was a little bit at least a week or two before we knew that Victoria Alonso was suing. So yeah, she got paid, man. She got paid for sure.
She did.
We'll see. I don't think any competitors are necessarily going to pick her up. I think they're smart enough to know what her impact was at the company and that it wasn't necessarily great. But it is also crazy to think about it this way. Disney would rather pay her north of $20 million to leave and be quiet than they would just to let her keep working. How bad do you really want to fire an employee? like that's, you really want her gone?
Yes.
Which is still giving me hope that some of this Lucasfilm and Marvel will get corrected, even if it's to the slightest degree, because they're cutting people from both sides of whatever culture war is happening at Disney right now.
Yeah.
Perlmutter's gone, Raheem Daniels is gone, so is Victoria Alonso, and next up on the list is probably Kathleen Kennedy. So if we're getting both extremes from both ends of the spectrum out and clearing the field for new blood, that is a breeding ground for innovation to me, which is probably the best route, the only route that Disney has to go. They got to get the ball rolling on Kathleen, though. Every minute she's there, she's making it worse.
Absolutely. All right, last story we have. So originally Disney had hired Jolene Purdy as child services agent Mrs. Kikoa for the Lilo and Stitch film.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of backlash for it because it would seem that they weren't hiring anybody for Agent Cobra Bubbles, the black man in the story.
And then they rushed that announcement out there, boy. They rushed that announcement.
A day or two until they announced that. They folded pretty quickly.
They made sure we knew that Mr. Bubbles was going to be there. My man Courtney Vance is going to be playing them. Now, why it wasn't Ving Rhames? I don't know. Maybe Ving was asking too much. He's the voice actor. It's like that seems too perfect to me.
Yeah.
But I like Courtney Vance. It was most important to me that they had the character in there.
Yeah. Right?
Like, we can talk about maybe it should have been Ving Rhames. I agree. But the most important thing is that the character was there and that he wasn't washed out of the, since we're talking about washing so much these days, that he wasn't washed out of the story. I thought so. Yeah. What the fuck I thought?
Yeah, no.
That's what I thought.
Sure. It's a good thing that they folded. It's just surprising that they folded so quickly, especially when sometimes
honestly,
they don't fold at all.
That was probably the plan all along, but the way that the news was released, it made it sound like it was like a recast or they were doing something different with the character.
Yeah.
So like they had to correct it really quickly because it seemed like you were just kicking the black guy out so that you can be more diverse and inclusive.
Yikes. Which you weren't being, considering the casting of Nani and some of the other characters, but
oh no, they still gonna get heat for that.
Yeah.
They're still gonna get heat for that. And you know what? I am really, If you thought that they were mad about Nani being white passing, she has to have a blood sister, right? Same mother and father. Lilo can't be too much darker than that if that's who they casted.
Yeah.
She can't be too much darker than what Nani is right now if we're making it make sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they changed it to an interracial couple. If they made Lilo's parents an interracial couple to make it make sense.
Sure. That's the only thing that would make sense. So we get
diverse.
Somebody that looks like was it Tito from Rocket Power, and then we get some white woman, basically.
Yeah, man. You know it's not diverse if you don't mix in white folks. It's not diverse. Can be.
Facts. Any other thoughts?
That's it for me, man. Give us your thoughts on everything we discussed here in the Rumor Mill segment of Behind the Cape. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Come back next week for another video.
Absolutely. And make sure you check out some of our previous videos. Last week, we discussed Jonathan Majors a little bit amongst some other news. I think we talked about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Super Mario Brothers movie. So make sure you watch that. And then obviously make sure you subscribe.
Peaches, 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 peaches. I love you.
Yikes. Anyway, make sure that you check it out. Make sure you subscribe as well, because we'll be talking about writing strikes, DC, Marvel, Gray Man 2, all that shit.